After drinking the green plum wine my mother handed me, I lost consciousness. When I awoke, my splendid dress had been removed, my jewelry stripped away, and my hands and feet were bound like a prisoner. Standing above me was my elder sister, wearing my dress and my jewelry, looking down at me with arrogance. "What are you doing?" I asked, confused. She smirked in triumph. "From now on, I will be the emperor's favored consort, and you will take my place and marry that cripple." In that moment, I understood, I had been betrayed by my parents and my sister. My mother had drugged me, and my sister, who was my identical twin, disguised herself as me to enter the palace and enjoy the glory that should have been mine. We looked nearly identical, and with the same clothes, no one could tell us apart. She continued, "Don't be resentful. The position of consort should have always been mine, and that cripple was always meant to be your fiancé. Now, everything is back to where it belongs." She wasn't wrong. The position of favored consort was always meant for her. My father was the prime minister, the Hua family had 2 daughters, one would enter the palace, and the other would marry the young marquis of the Qin family. But the emperor was nearly 60 and cruel by nature, while the young marquis was a handsome and accomplished young man, destined for greatness. My sister had no wish to marry the emperor, so she wanted to switch places with me. And if she didn't want to, how could I possibly want to marry that old emperor? Yet, with one sentence, my mother silenced my protest. Dan, your sister isn't well. You need to yield to her." At that moment, I felt nothing at all. Since childhood, my mother had always been like this. Whatever happened, I was always the one who had to yield to my sister. Even when she pushed me into the water, or snatched away the zither my teacher gave me, as long as she cried, they would all rush to comfort her, leaving me, the one actually hurt, behind. If my sister fell ill, my parents would summon the best physicians, even travel hundreds of miles to pray for her recovery. When I was sick, my mother didn't even notice, I had to endure it on my own. I'd long since gotten used to it. I had no choice, I could only enter the palace in my sister's place, becoming the emperor's consort. But fate has a cruel sense of humor. The emperor often visited my palace, only to look at me in silence, as if staring through me to see someone else. Still, I was the favored consort, enjoying a life of luxury. As for the young Marquis, Qin Xiang, he fell from his horse during a campaign. Though he survived, his leg was broken, he was left crippled, his bright future ruined. That was when my sister regretted her choice and wanted to switch back. But why should I agree? "Aren't you afraid I'll expose you?" I asked coldly. She laughed with contempt. "No one can tell us apart. The only ones who could say anything are our parents, and they will always side with me." She was right. As long as our parents insisted that she had married the emperor from the very start, no one else could say otherwise. If the emperor grew suspicious, my sister could simply play dumb. Besides, the only thing he really cared about was this face. Even if he discovered the truth, it would make little difference. "I'll enter the palace now. Tomorrow is your wedding to that cripple. Enjoy your life together." With those words, my sister turned and left gracefully. I was locked in this room, likely forgotten by my parents, who were busy sending my sister off as the new consort. I skipped lunch, hunger gnawing at me until dusk. In the evening, my mother came to see me, her eyes betraying a hint of guilt. "The young marquis is crippled now, neglected by the Qin household. Your sister could never bear that kind of hardship." "Mother, do you really think I can?" I couldn't help but ask. "You've always been strong since you were little. A little suffering is nothing for you," she replied. Strong, because I was left to fend for myself, with no one to rely on but me. I said this with bitter irony. The guilt in my mother's eyes vanished, replaced by impatience. "Your sister is in the palace now. The outcome is set. Talking about anything else is useless. Once you marry into the Qin household, the Hua family will support you. But if you gossip outside and tarnish your sister's reputation, don't blame us for turning our backs on you." It was a threat. She was certain that with the young marquis crippled, I'd have no choice but to depend on my natal family. I was locked up overnight. The next day, I was hastily dressed and sent off in the bridal sedan. The Hua twins, such different fates. One became the emperor's beloved consort, with the emperor himself coming to escort her into the palace, basking in honor. The other was married off to a cripple, destined for a life of hardship and misery. Outside the sedan, I heard the townsfolk whispering, all their pity was for me. The sedan stopped. A hand reached out to me. I placed my hand in his, broad and calloused. I stepped out and caught sight of the figure in the wheelchair. This was Qin Xiang, the one called the young war god. For a long time, stories of Qin Xiang were heard throughout the capital, even in the palace, I'd heard of him. He was the heir of the Qin Marquisate, famous for his bravery and endless prospects, born to nobility. But fate is jealous of the talented. Now, having become a cripple, his position in the household was precarious, suffering under the new wife's mistreatment. Even the old marquis turned a blind eye. A man once so brilliant had now fallen so low, it was a tragedy. In retrospect, those rumors weren't unfounded. Our wedding was a meager affair, with few guests and scant gifts. Our bridal chamber was nearly bare. I'd only just sat down when Qin Xiang entered the room and lifted my red veil. I was startled by his face, eyebrows like swords, eyes bright as stars, strikingly handsome, a faint scar on his cheek lending him a wild air. He sat in his wheelchair, exuding a kind of careless defiance that barely hid his frustration. "Have you already regretted marrying a cripple like me?" he asked. "If you regret it, it's too late now. Before you got into the bridal sedan, there was still a chance." "I do not regret it," I answered. Qin Xiang paused, then silently removed my heavy jewelry for me. The next Qin Xiang was not a cripple. Even if his leg was injured, he could still command the three armies, and in the future, he might ascend to the highest position. In truth, I had been reborn. In my previous life, I never returned home. I became the emperor's favored consort and enjoyed wealth and glory for a time. Later, simply because the national preceptor called me a bewitching consort who would bring disaster to the nation, I was put to death in a most miserable way. As for my sister, when Qin Xiang came to fetch his bride, she broke off the engagement on the spot, publicly humiliating him, calling him a cripple unworthy of her. She said every hurtful thing possible. After I died, my soul wandered for more than a decade. I learned what happened afterward. In the end, Qin Xiang became a powerful minister who dominated the court. My sister regretted it too late, my mother begged and pleaded, but nothing could change the tragic fate of the Hua family. Now, in this new life, I was determined not to repeat the same fate. So I used the excuse of missing my family to beg the emperor to let me return home. In my past life, before I was killed, my sister was always jealous of me, constantly saying I had stolen the glory and wealth that belonged to her. This time, sure enough, my sister could not bear the thought of marrying a cripple. She wanted the life of a favored consort. I looked toward the imperial palace. "Sister, you made this choice yourself. Don't blame me for what's to come." The red candles flickered. Qin Xiang approached me. "It's time for the wedding night." My body stiffened, and I didn't say a word. To me, he was a complete stranger. The first meeting was already so intimate, I felt awkward and shy. Qin Xiang let out a mocking laugh. "So you really do despise me?" I wanted to deny it, but Qin Xiang had already spread a blanket on the floor. That night, I slept on the bed, Qin Xiang slept on the floor. Perhaps because it was a strange bed, I couldn't sleep deeply. Half asleep, I suddenly heard stifled sounds of pain. In the moonlight, I saw Qin Xiang curled up in agony. I quickly sat up and lit a candle. I saw his face was pale, covered in cold sweat, rubbing his injured leg, it was clearly in pain. My mother's leg had been injured before, it would ache on rainy days. To please her, I'd learned from the family physician how to massage the pain away. I got out of bed and put my hands on Qin Xiang's leg, massaging it skillfully. After a while, I felt his gaze on me. I looked up and met Qin Xiang's searching eyes. So you really don't despise me, he said. I quickly replied, how could I ever despise you? You are a valiant general. Though you're injured now, it's only temporary. You'll definitely recover and return to the battlefield. Chen Xiang seemed moved. After a long moment, he said, it feels much better. You should rest now. After that, I slept soundly till morning. The next day, I once again saw the kind of mistreatment Chen Xiang had to endure. He couldn't walk easily, yet there was no one to serve him. The food the servants brought was always leftovers, cold and unappetizing. Do you really want to live this hard life with me? Chen Xiang asked. I didn't answer, just picked up a cold mantou and took a bite. Chen Xiang snatched the mantou from me and placed the only bowl of hot porridge in front of me. I didn't feel the slightest hardship. The life in the Hua family might have been luxurious, but everything I got was what my sister didn't want. With Chen Xiang, though he never said a kind word, he always left the best things for me. On the second day of our marriage, a decree came from the palace consort, summoning me to the palace. Everyone said my sister and I were close as could be. Only I knew that she just wanted to see how miserable I was. She'd only been in the palace a few days, yet the emperor favored her endlessly. Pleased with herself, she was desperate to find someone to show off to, and I was the perfect target. Sure enough, as soon as I entered the palace, I saw my sister dressed in splendor, sitting above me, face full of pride and arrogance. All the clothes I didn't like, His Majesty ordered new ones for me. Oh, and all the old things have been replaced, I thought they were filthy and ugly. This is a luminous pearl the emperor gave me, the biggest in the empire. I just had to say a word, and he gave it to me. And here, this used to be a lotus pond, but I don't like it. The emperor had it filled in and replaced with peonies instead. I liked lotuses, but my sister, considering herself noble, only liked peonies. She wanted to erase every trace of me, replacing everything with her own tastes. Oh my, little sister, why are you dressed so poorly? Living in the Chen household must be hard, isn't it? Why don't you beg me a little, and maybe I'll take care of you? How would you like me to beg? I asked. Just like when we were kids, that time in the woodshed, she said indifferently, recalling an old story. A surge of anger rose in my chest. That time, she'd locked me in the woodshed and thrown a venomous snake inside. I'd been terrified of snakes all my life. I cried until my face was covered in tears and snot, begging her again and again. No matter how much I begged, she ignored me. I was so scared and desperate I fainted. For years, I had nightmares because of that. My trauma was nothing but a joke for her to reminisce about. Suppressing my anger, I gave a cold laugh. Don't worry about me, sister. Worry about yourself. All this glory and splendor won't last long. Before long, news of drought in Qingzhou would arrive. All it took was one word from the national preceptor, bewitching consort who brings disaster, and beauty would turn to ruin, glory to dust. My sister wasn't satisfied until she'd seen me at my lowest. But the emperor arrived. Afraid he'd noticed something, she hurriedly told the maids to send me out. Back at the Chen household, a group of old maids blocked my way. Young madam, the marquis's wife requests your presence. Chen Xiang's mother had long since passed away. The current marquis's wife was actually his stepmother. Her two sons were useless, while Chen Xiang was famous since youth. Naturally, the stepmother was jealous of him. Back then, the Chen household needed Chen Xiang, so she had to put up with him. Now that he'd fallen from grace, she trampled him at every chance, with all sorts of insults. Even I, like a fish in a tank, was caught up in her schemes. The old maids all had the look that if I refused, they'd drag me there. I followed them into the hall. There sat a richly dressed woman. Young madam, by tradition, the new bride must serve tea to the madam. I picked up the tea and offered it to her. She immediately found fault. The cup isn't full enough. One maid said, let me top it up. Boiling water was poured in, nearly overflowing, but the maid didn't stop. Young madam, you'd better hold that cup steady, she said with obvious malice. Just as the tea was about to spill, I flicked my hand and sent it splashing straight into the maid's face. A shrill scream pierced the room. Before the Marquis's wife could react, I spoke first. What a fine maid, pouring boiling water into an already full cup. Are you trying to scald me to death? You're just a servant, and yet you dare to disrespect your mistress like this. Serving the Marquis's wife every day, who knows how many times you've overstepped your bounds. Today, I'll teach you a lesson on her behalf. With that, I slapped the maid again. The Marquis's wife was momentarily stunned. When she finally came to her senses, she flew into a rage. You're bold indeed. I was just trying to help you put on a show, and now you turn everything upside down. I replied with an innocent expression. Slap her for me. The Marquis's wife shouted in anger. I watched as the other maids approached, then said coldly, my father is the Prime Minister, my sister is the Imperial Consort. If you dare lay a hand on me, aren't you afraid I'll report it to the Emperor? Even though my parents and sister cared nothing for me, at a moment like this I could still use their power to intimidate others. Sure enough, the Marquis's wife hesitated, fear flickering in her eyes. At that moment, a voice sounded from outside. My dear, so this is where you are, I've been looking for you everywhere. Qin Xiang hurried in, pushing his own wheelchair. He seemed a bit breathless, but relaxed as soon as he saw I was unharmed, his expression composed and calm. Qin Xiang, I've just finished serving tea to the Marquis's wife. Then come home with me, he said. The Marquis's wife, clearly unwilling, was about to protest, but one look from Qin Xiang, his gaze cold and sharp, made her fall silent. Even with both legs crippled, Qin Xiang's reputation remained, she still feared him. Oh, by the way, even though I'm a Prime Minister's daughter, the servants here keep giving me cold mantu to eat. I don't want this happening again, or I'll make sure the whole city hears about it. With that, I pushed Qin Xiang's wheelchair out of the courtyard. Soon after, I heard the sound of angry objects being smashed behind me. You really are fierce, Qin Xiang said with a teasing tone. Scared? I shot back, half joking. It's too late now, you've already married me. Qin Xiang smiled, sunlight spilling over him, as if cloaking him in a golden aura. I stared at him, lost in thought. I could almost picture it, when his legs were still whole, he must have been a dazzling youth in splendid robes, riding a horse with pride and confidence, as gallant and imposing as a hero from legend. In that moment, a wild idea flashed through my mind. If only I could heal Qin Xiang's legs. But the dowry my parents gave me, though it looked substantial, wasn't worth much at all. I was short on money. 3 days later, I returned home to visit my family. Qin Xiang went with me to the Hua household. My parents never cared for me. To them, Qin Xiang was not just a crippled offering, but also a disgrace. Qin Xiang and I sat in the main hall, waiting a long time before my mother finally appeared, barely exchanging a word before going off to her own affairs. My father didn't even show up. I didn't mind. I couldn't understand how people could be so biased, but I'd long since gotten used to it. If they treated me with cold indifference, I'd return it in kind. I led Qin Xiang to my old room. It was just as I'd left it, untouched. I gathered up all my savings and a few pieces of valuable jewelry, hiding them in my clothing. At least this trip wasn't wasted, I said cheerfully. Qin Xiang watched me, momentarily dazed. Now that I had money, I set out everywhere searching for renowned physicians. Heaven did not disappoint me, eventually, I found someone. The physician's surname was Quach, a famed physician from Jiangnan. He was highly skilled, but his unusual methods meant his reputation was quite polarizing. As luck would have it, I heard that physician Quach was coming to the capital to visit relatives. Once I learned where he was staying, I went to see him. To my surprise, this physician had an eccentric personality. No, I won't treat him. I pulled out a banknote. I'll think about it. I added a few more notes, a total of 1,000 taels. Well, it's not impossible, Physician Quach said, pocketing the notes. I was overjoyed. Then Physician Quach rolled his eyes and tossed the whole stack back at me. Do you really think I just don't want to get involved in court intrigues? Interfering in other people's affairs is a good way to get yourself killed young. I had thought physician Quach was indifferent to worldly matters. In reality, he saw everything quite clearly. Qin Xiang's broken legs were, for some, a cause for celebration. Take the crown prince, for example. His mother's clan was also from a military family. Qin Xiang was too outstanding and had caught the emperor's eye. Given time, he could become a great general. If the emperor put the army in his hands, the crown prince's maternal family would lose its influence. Qin Xiang's injury wasn't incurable, it was simply that there were people who wanted to prevent his recovery. Thinking back to my previous life, after my death my soul drifted close to Qin Xiang. By then, he was already a general with great power. He had sought out countless famous physicians, desperate to heal his legs, but in the end, all he received were their regrets. If only he'd been treated sooner, the physicians always said. The window for healing has passed. I refused to give up. Physician Quach, saving Qin Xiang might mean saving countless others, that's a great merit. He only replied, but have you ever asked Qin Xiang if he wants to be cured? I was speechless. At this point, Qin Xiang probably didn't want to be healed. His broken leg was, in truth, a way to protect himself, lying low, waiting for the right moment to rise again. Still, I didn't want him to remain crippled forever. I also felt that deep down, Qin Xiang longed to stand again. Otherwise, in my previous life, why would he have spent years seeking out one famous physician after another? When each one shook their head, his eyes always dimmed with disappointment. I returned home. Just as I stepped into the courtyard, I stopped in my tracks. Qin Xiang was in his wheelchair, but he wasn't alone. Standing next to him was someone who looked familiar, one of the gardeners in the household. Normally, that gardener was always bowed and meek, but now there was a cold, dangerous air about him. When he looked at me, there was a fierceness in his eyes he couldn't hide. Qin Xiang glanced at me, seemed surprised for a moment, then quickly regained his composure. You may go, he said gently. The gardener instantly returned to his respectful posture and withdrew. Qin Xiang beckoned me over. I stepped closer. So, you saw everything? He asked in an indifferent tone. We were both smart enough not to lay everything out in the open. Qin Xiang might seem like a victim, suffering at the hands of others, but in truth, he was just biding his time. That gardener was once a brave officer under Qin Xiang's command. He had disguised himself as a gardener in order to stay hidden and protect him in secret. This was a secret I had stumbled upon by accident, which was why the gardener had wanted to silence me. Were you going to silence me? I asked. Honestly, I was a little nervous. If Qin Xiang truly wanted to kill me to keep the secret, I'd have no way to resist. Only after dying once do you realize how precious life is. Suddenly, I felt a large hand gently resting on my bowed head, softly ruffling my hair. What are you thinking? You're my wife, Qin Xiang said. I looked up and met his gentle gaze. In that moment, my heart skipped a beat. It seemed that physician Quach intended to stay in the capital for a while. Whenever I had free time, I would go bother him. Whenever he saw me, he would chase me away. But I was thick-skinned and didn't take offense. When he was busy, I'd help him with odd jobs. Eventually, he got used to ordering me around and stopped shooing me away. I didn't know much about medicine, so I could only handle the simple tasks. Later on, for convenience, physician Quach started teaching me some basic medical knowledge. Maybe I really had some talent in this area, because I picked things up quickly. One time, a patient came in, saying he'd broken his leg in a fall. The bone had been set, but he still couldn't walk. Physician Quach, why is that? I couldn't help but ask, my heart beating a little faster. Physician Quach glanced at me. The body isn't just bone, there are also tendons. This patient's problem is with the tendons, not the bone. The real injury is in the back, not the leg. He went on to say that in cases like this, recovery couldn't be rushed and had to happen slowly. I stood by his side as he treated the patient, observing carefully. Eventually, I learned the technique, and physician Quach let me try it myself. After I got the hang of it, I brought a set of physician Quach's needles home. I crouched by Chen Xiang's bed. Before long, Chen Xiang woke up. I wondered what he must have thought, seeing his wife crouched by his bed, holding a needle, eager to try it out. Chen Xiang, I've learned how to treat your leg. Do you want to give it a try? He collected himself, then nodded. All right. At that moment, I was so caught up in my excitement that nothing seemed wrong. Later, something the gardener said made me realize just how reckless I had been. General, how can you let someone who knows nothing about medicine treat you? This is worse than treating a dead horse like a living one, utter nonsense. Even though I'd been studying with physician Quach and had his guidance, it had only been a month. To study medicine, you needed at least several years, sometimes decades. What could anyone learn in just 1 month? To outsiders, this looked like nothing but reckless improvisation. And yet, Chen Xiang still let me go ahead. Chen Xiang, aren't you afraid I'll mess things up? I couldn't help but ask. You won't, he replied firmly, with more faith in me than I had in myself. Because of that trust, I gave it my all, hoping to see results someday. While I devoted myself to treating Chen Xiang, the disaster everyone had expected finally arrived. A severe drought struck Qingzhou. At first, it was just the common people petitioning the capital for help. Qingzhou was suffering, supposedly the granaries had been opened, but the bodies of the starving still littered the streets. Then, it became a matter of court factions fighting for dominance. Qingzhou was under the jurisdiction of the Crown Prince's faction. The people's suffering was inevitably linked to the Crown Prince. Just as the Crown Prince was at his wit's end, the National Preceptor declared the true cause of the drought in Qingzhou. It was all because of a bewitching consort who brought disaster to the nation. In an instant, the anger of the people shifted from the Crown Prince to the consort. When I was in the midst of it all, I felt like it was disaster falling from the sky. Now, standing on the outside, I could see things clearly. Looking back, the National Preceptor was always on the Crown Prince's side. The so-called bewitching consort was nothing but a scapegoat. My sister, so proud of her position, must be panicking by now. At first, the emperor wanted to protect her. But under constant pressure from the ministers, even he couldn't hold out. In the end, he agreed, offer up the consort as a sacrifice to the heavens in exchange for rain for Qingzhou. The Hu family sent someone to bring me home, but I always found excuses to refuse. My mother, unable to sit still, came to see me herself. As soon as she walked through the door, she slapped me across the face. So now you've got wings and refuse to listen to your own mother. She was furious. I touched my cheek and smiled. Mother, once married, I should follow my husband. Chen Xiang is not in good health. Of course I should put him first and take care of him. A cripple, and yet you really treat him like a treasure. My mother's voice dripped with contempt as she mentioned Chen Xiang. Suddenly, her expression softened. She took my hand gently. I know you never wanted to marry a cripple. Now there's a way out. Go to the palace and take your sister's place, sacrifice yourself as the offering to heaven, instead of her. I couldn't help but laugh, almost hysterically. Just as I expected, she wanted to use me as a substitute for my sister. It was so absurd I laughed until tears fell. Mother, when my sister looked down on the old emperor and saw Chen Xiang's bright future, she immediately stole my engagement. When I took her place in the palace, I ended up unexpectedly favored. But then Chen Xiang became crippled, his future bleak, and suddenly she regretted it, wanted to be the favored consort again. When she was basking in the emperor's love, she humiliated me. Now that disaster strikes, you want to switch us again. Don't you think it's funny? Why are all the good things for my sister, and I'm the one who has to go die? My mother's eyes flickered with guilt, but she kept her composure and said patiently, what death? Your father has already arranged things with the National Preceptor. It's just for show. Once it's over, I'll bring you back and find you a good marriage. You don't have to waste your life here in the Qin household anymore. Just for show, she said. My father may care about appearances, but the national preceptor certainly wouldn't spare the so-called bewitching consort just to save face. In my last life, I was burned to death. The agony of the flames is something I still remember with terror. Mother was lying to me. If there was really no danger, why not let my sister go instead? I laughed and asked back. Mother was left speechless for a moment, but quickly switched to the scolding tone of a parent, accusing me of disobedience. Just then, the door opened. Qin Xiang stood there, staring coldly at my mother. Madam Hua, what you just said is treason. If word of this reaches the emperor, are you ready for the entire Hua family to die alongside the consort? My mother's face turned deathly pale. She glared at me with hatred before storming out. I couldn't stop laughing. It really was absurd. Dan, come here. I walked over to Qin Xiang. He opened his arms. I hugged him. Don't be sad. You still have me. So, he'd seen the pain in my heart. I thought I'd stopped caring long ago. In reality, I still held on to a shred of hope. Now, that hope was completely shattered. Yet I didn't feel heartbroken. Maybe it was because this embrace felt so warm. Not long after, I heard the news, the imperial consort had gone mad. She claimed she wasn't really the consort, that the true consort was living in the Qin household, and she was only an impostor. The one spreading the rumor of her madness was none other than the Prime Minister. If what my sister said was true, it would be treason, and the entire Hua family would be doomed. But if she was simply insane, then everything she said would be dismissed, and the family would be spared. Now I understood my father's reasoning. So even my sister could be abandoned. Her mother quarreled bitterly with my father over this, only to be locked away. Qin Xiang told me the story, almost as if it were a joke. Only my mother stayed as biased as ever. Not long after, my sister was sent to be the sacrificial offering. I didn't go to watch. Qin Xiang didn't mention it, either. But I heard all the details from others. She cursed me non-stop, saying I'd plotted against her, swearing she'd haunt me even after death. The former consort, once so noble, had become no different from a madwoman. Flames swallowed her whole. Her curses turned into screams. I could almost picture the scene, but my heart was strangely calm. Sister, this was your own choice. In your next life, don't be so greedy. After the consort's death, there was still no reign in Qingzhou. The blame turned back to the crown prince, and the court was thrown into turmoil. My mother put all the blame for my sister's death onto me. She even tried to have me poisoned and hired assassins to kill me. Thanks to Qin Xiang's protection, I survived every time, barely. I just found it troublesome. It made it hard to fully focus on treating Qin Xiang's leg. But in all this time, the thing that gave me the most joy was Qin Xiang's leg. After daily treatment, he could feel sensations, and his toes could move. He still couldn't stand, but any progress brought hope. 2 months later, Qin Xiang was able to walk with my support. The gardener who had once doubted me was stunned at first, then overwhelmed with gratitude, almost falling to his knees in front of me. I used to doubt you, madam. I'm ashamed. Please forgive me. I quickly stopped him. Qin Xiang's recovery had to be kept secret. Only the three of us knew, in the eyes of everyone else, he was still a cripple. Qin Xiang seemed busier than ever. I sensed that something major was about to happen. Soon, the emperor fell ill, and the crown prince took charge. Before long, rebellion broke out in Qingzhou. The crown prince sent his favorite general to suppress it. But the man was obsessed with women, and before the battle even began, he was assassinated. Tens of thousands of imperial troops lost their commander and were defeated by a ragtag rebel force. The crown prince sent another general, who soon died at the rebels' hands as well. On top of that, the barbarians invaded, trouble on all sides, no capable commanders, utter chaos. The emperor, deeply disappointed in the crown prince, pushed him aside and took charge himself. After much thought, the emperor finally remembered Qin Xiang. "Sire, Qin Xiang is a cripple. How can he take command?" Many officials objected. "How many of you can actually fight a war?" The emperor shot back. That silenced the whole court. Cripple or not, Qin Xiang could still lead troops. Even as the emperor said it, I doubt he truly believed it. But Qin Xiang did not let him down. In just a month, he put down the rebellion. After restoring order, he went straight to the border to face the barbarians. Qin Xiang made his name fighting the barbarians. They used to fear him, but now, thinking he was a cripple, they'd grown bold. Until, on the battlefield, they saw him stand up. Their fighting spirit collapsed, and Qin Xiang routed them in no time. He returned in triumph and was named Marquis Protector and Grand General by the Emperor. A grand banquet was held in his honor. Before the banquet was even over, Qin Xiang rushed home. 3 months apart, I missed my wife dearly. His words made the emperor roar with laughter and sent him home early. The night was bright with the full moon and blooming flowers. Hearing that Qin Xiang had returned victorious, I was in such a good mood that I couldn't help but drink 2 more cups of Physician Quatch's medicinal wine. Physician Quatch's wine was indeed delicious, but the alcohol content was high. After 2 cups, my head was spinning. In a haze, I saw a tall figure step into the courtyard, walking toward me one steady step at a time, just like in my dreams. I stood up, staggered forward a couple of steps, and fell. The next moment, I landed in a pair of warm, familiar arms that I didn't want to leave. "Dan Dan." A gentle voice sounded above me. I tried to look up, but didn't have the strength, so I simply snuggled into his embrace. I heard a laugh, helpless and affectionate. When I woke up, I found myself alone in bed. Everything from the previous night felt like a dream. Could it be Qin Xiang had really returned? I quickly got up, wanting to see him. Just then, the door opened. It was Qin Xiang. I couldn't take my eyes off him. In the past, I thought I only felt a little for Qin Xiang. But after 3 months apart, missing him every single day, I realized just how deeply I'd fallen. Qin Xiang simply looked at me and smiled. I smiled back. After that, Qin Xiang stayed with me in the house every day. The Marquis's wife came by a few times, no longer proud, but bowing and scraping, eager to please Qin Xiang. Now that Qin Xiang held military power, he was obviously the rising star. She must have remembered how she mistreated him and was terrified of retribution. But she needn't worry about Qin Xiang, his father had already handled everything. The Marquis wrote a letter of divorce, dismissed his current wife, and took his sons to a country estate. He often came by to visit Qin Xiang, hoping to play the role of the loving father. Qin Xiang was having none of it. He simply took me and moved out of the Qin household. From his attitude, it was clear he wanted to cut ties. The Marquis gained nothing from Qin Xiang's rise, instead, he was despised by all the other officials. The day after Qin Xiang and I moved to our new home, the Prime Minister himself came to visit. I couldn't help but find it amusing, when Qin Xiang and I used to visit home, he wouldn't even show his face. Now he was desperate to come knocking. He didn't come to make small talk. He came to beg for help. He had always been part of the Crown Prince's faction. Now the Emperor had deposed the Crown Prince and was purging his supporters. The Prime Minister knew he would not escape. He wanted Qin Xiang to plead his case to the Emperor. Qin Xiang refused. The Emperor has made up his mind to deal with the Crown Prince's faction, no one's plea will make a difference. Besides, you know how you treated me and Dan Dan. There's no reason for me to risk the Emperor's trust for you. My father tried to approach me next, sending letter after letter. He started with tales of fatherly love, then asked me to speak for him to Qin Xiang. At first, I opened his letters. Later, I just burned them without reading. A few days later, I ran into my mother on the street. She hurried over, all warmth and affection. Dan Dan, why haven't you visited home? I miss you so much. She acted as if she hadn't just tried to have me killed. I brushed her hand away. A flash of annoyance. Father had probably told her to try persuading me. Dan, I know you resent me. I truly feel guilty. But you're my flesh and blood. How can there be lasting resentment between mother and child? I cut her off. If I'm your flesh and blood, why did you try to take my life? She looked awkward. I was just confused, in a moment of weakness. She'd favored my sister since I was little, also just a moment of weakness. Dan, why do you have to be so unforgiving? Sorry, but I am the type to hold a grudge. I remember all the favoritism, even the attempts on my life. Not taking revenge is already merciful. I absolutely will not help you. I turned and walked away. At that moment, I suddenly understood, some favoritism needs no reason. The Hua family was confiscated, all male and female relatives exiled. The once glorious prime minister's household fell into utter ruin. From the upper floor, I watched two bent figures, my father and mother, backs hunched, faces ashen, shuffle along. Suddenly, my father paused and looked back. His face was full of regret and longing. Maybe now he finally realized he should have treated Qinxiang better. My lady, it's windy. Let's go home. Qinxiang draped a cloak around me, shielding me from the chill. I nodded. Riding home in the carriage with Qinxiang, I vaguely heard whispers along the street. They say the two sisters of the Hua family, one became the emperor's favored consort, the other married the heir of the Qin family. Back then, everyone said the elder sister was blessed, the younger one doomed. Who would have thought fate would turn? The consort became a scapegoat and was burned to death, but the crippled heir rose again. Now the younger sister is a marquis's wife and was even granted the imperial title. Inside the carriage, drowsy, I leaned against Qinxiang. Surrounded by his familiar scent, I fell asleep. I seemed to dream a dream. In the dream, on the great bridge in the capital, my sister shoved me and I nearly fell into the water. Desperate and afraid, a hand suddenly reached out and grabbed me. I looked up into a youthful, handsome face. A month later, the emperor passed away. The sixth prince, only 6 years old, ascended the throne. Qinxiang became regent, assisting the new emperor. Everything was as it should be. The end.